My wife cheated on me with her boss, then secretly signed over our $500, $0 family house and $200, $0 in savings to him the night before our divorce hearing. Now she's claiming I pushed her into signing and trying to take everything from me. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy writing about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be a cheating, manipulative bitch. Honestly, I always thought we had a solid marriage, you know. We had our ups and downs, sure, but I never suspected she'd do something like this. And then it all fell apart in the most unexpected, brutal way. It started about 6 months ago. Things felt off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Lisa was acting weird, late nights at work, always on her phone, sneaking around with her friends but avoiding me. At first, I thought maybe she was just stressed out, or maybe she was secretly planning a surprise birthday thing or something. But then I caught her in a lie. She told me she was working late the night I saw her phone light up with a message from John, her boss. When I asked her about it, she dismissed me, said I was paranoid and that I was imagining things. That should have been my first warning sign, her quick defensiveness, the way she shut down when I asked questions. But I ignored it, thinking maybe I was just overreacting. Things got worse when she started canceling plans, making excuses about work emergencies, and avoiding any real conversations about our marriage. I even noticed she was spending more money, little things, but enough to make me suspicious. A couple of times, I saw charges on our credit card for dinners at fancy restaurants, and she'd come home smelling like perfume I didn't recognize. She told me it was from a client dinner, but I wasn't buying it. Then one night, I decided to follow her. I know that sounds crazy, but I was desperate for answers. She left the house around 9 p.m., claiming she was going to a networking event. I followed her to a hotel downtown. I saw her go into a room with John, her boss, and they weren't just talking, they were kissing. Full-on, tongue-in-mouth, no pretending kind of kissing. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I stood there, hidden behind a car, watching as they climbed into bed together. That moment, it's burned into my brain. I knew then that my wife had been cheating on me for months. And not just with some guy, her boss, John, the guy she always said was just a client or a friend. Turns out they'd been having an affair for at least 6 months, maybe longer. She lied to my face every time I asked if she was seeing anyone else. I felt numb, then furious. How could she do this to me? To our family? I'd been working my ass off trying to provide for us, and she was out screwing her boss behind my back. The worst part, the night I caught her, she came home like nothing had happened. She was all sweet and apologetic, said she was sorry I was feeling insecure, that I was imagining things. She even cried. Told me she loved me and swore she'd never do anything to hurt me. But I knew better. I knew she was lying. I saw the truth with my own eyes. That's when I started to realize I'd been played. Not just cheated on, but completely. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I married, had been secretly betraying me for months. And the worst part, she was still lying. Even after I confronted her with what I saw, she insisted I was mistaken, that I'd misunderstood, that John was just a friend. Yeah, right, she's a master at lying, and I was starting to see that her lies went way deeper than I thought. So now I was stuck. I didn't know what to do. Do I confront her again? Do I call the cops? Do I just pack up and leave? The betrayal hit me so hard I couldn't even think straight. But what I did know was this: I was done trusting her. Done pretending everything was okay. And I was about to find out just how far she was willing to go to cover her tracks. After I saw her with John that night, everything changed. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, replaying what I saw, trying to find some way it wasn't real, but deep down I knew the truth. I had caught my wife in the act and I couldn't unsee it. Lisa always played the victim, acting innocent and sweet whenever she needed to, but that night her mask slipped. She looked different, guilty, nervous, like she knew I'd find out someday. And now that I couldn't ignore it anymore. The next morning I confronted her. I was furious, trembling with rage. I told her I knew about her affair with John. Her reaction: she looked at me, eyes wide, then scoffed. "You're crazy," she snapped. "You're just paranoid. I don't know what you're talking about." She tried to brush it off, acting like I was imagining things, like I was overreacting. But I wasn't buying it. I pulled out the evidence. Photos I took of her sneaking into that hotel, the receipts from the dinner, the messages I'd found on her phone. I laid it all out and her face turned pale, then red with anger. "Why are you doing this?" she spat. "I was just having some fun. It's not a big deal. You're overreacting as usual." She started crying, claiming she was stressed, that John was just a friend who helped her with her career, that it was all innocent. I couldn't believe how she was spinning it. I told her I wanted a divorce, that I'd had enough of her lies and betrayal. That's when she really lost it. Lisa started screaming, calling me controlling, insecure, jealous. She told me I was the reason she cheated, that I wasn't paying enough attention to her, that I was neglectful, that I didn't satisfy her anymore. She said she deserved better and that her affair was just a way to find happiness. Her words were like knives. I felt my stomach turn. I'd given her everything, my time, my money, my love, and she was throwing it all away for some guy at her job. I'd never felt so betrayed in my life. The thing that really broke me was when she said she was going to leave, that she'd figure out her life without me. I asked her if she even loved John and she just smirked, said she didn't know, that she was tired of pretending everything was perfect. She told me she was done with the marriage, that she'd signed papers already, secretly, of course. I found out later she'd been sneaking around, signing over our house and savings to John the night before the divorce hearing. She planned it all. I was stunned. I mean, she had the audacity to do that behind my back. She was claiming I pushed her into signing, that I was abusive or controlling. But the truth was, she'd been planning her escape for months, and I was the last to know. The house we bought together, the savings we worked so hard for, she transferred it all to John, who was waiting in the wings to snatch it. And she had the nerve to call me a monster when I found out. I felt numb for days after that. It was like my world was collapsing. I had trusted her. I had loved her. And she had used me, betrayed me, and then took everything I worked for. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see what was happening right under my nose. I thought I knew her. Turns out I didn't know her at all. In the aftermath, I started to realize I wasn't just angry. I was hurt, betrayed, and humiliated. But I also knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with stealing our house and savings without consequences. I started digging into her financials, looking for any other hidden accounts or transfers. I wanted to understand just how far her lies went and how much she'd taken from us. It was sickening to realize how much she'd manipulated the entire situation, lying her way through the divorce process, claiming she was the victim. The thing that stung the most, the fact that she'd probably been planning this for months, maybe even over a year. I had no idea she'd been secretly signing documents, transferring money, and planning her escape right under my nose. I thought we had a good marriage, but it was all a lie. She was a master at deception, and I was just the fool who trusted her. Now I'm left with a broken heart and a house that's not really mine anymore. I don't even know how to start picking up the pieces. After the initial shock wore off, I realized I needed act fast. Lisa was out of control, spinning stories, trying to paint herself as the victim, and claiming I was abusive or controlling, anything to shift blame away from herself. She told everyone, including the divorce judge, that I pushed her into signing over everything, that I was threatening her, and that she had no choice but to give John the house and our savings. The audacity of that woman. I knew I had to gather solid proof. I started digging into the paperwork, bank statements, and emails. Turns out she had secretly signed legal documents transferring ownership of our house and our savings account, over $500,000, just a day before the divorce hearing. I found the signed documents in a hidden folder on her laptop, along with emails where she was coordinating with a lawyer she'd hired behind my back. She was planning her escape for months, and I had no idea. She was so good at hiding it, I almost didn't believe it myself. The day of the hearing was a nightmare. I showed up with all the proof I had, transaction records, signed documents, emails, and I demanded the judge look at it. Lisa sat there crying crocodile tears, insisting she was a victim of my abuse, that I manipulated her into signing everything away. She claimed I'd threatened her and that she was forced to do it. The judge looked at her, then at me, and asked for evidence. I laid out everything: screenshots, bank records, the signed legal papers. That's when the judge looked at her with a mix of suspicion and disbelief. He asked her directly if she had signed those documents willingly. She hesitated, then said yes, but then she started backtracking, saying she'd been pressured, that she was scared of me, that she'd been coerced. She spun a story about how I'd been controlling and emotionally abusive, trying to sway the court's opinion. I was furious. I knew I wasn't perfect, but I'd never laid a hand on her or threatened her. She was just trying to save her own ass, and it was obvious. Meanwhile, I was furious at myself for not seeing the signs earlier. I thought I knew her. I thought I was building a future with her. Instead, she was planning her exit, signing over everything to John and trying to make me look like the villain. I kept staring at her, trying to read her face, but all I saw was this cold, calculating woman who'd been lying to me the whole time. The judge, after reviewing everything, decided to hold a hearing to determine the ownership of the house and the savings. But Lisa's story was so full of holes, the judge was clearly suspicious. And when I showed the evidence that she'd signed everything just before the divorce, it became obvious she'd been trying to hide her plans. I felt a mixture of relief and rage: relief that I had proof, and rage that she'd gone this far to screw me over. Over the next few days, I worked with a lawyer to file a motion to overturn the transfer of the house and the savings. I knew she'd lied and manipulated her way through the process, but I was determined to get what was rightfully ours. I also started to realize how much she'd been lying about her feelings, about her love for me. All of it was a lie, just a game to get what she wanted. In the meantime, I kept thinking about how she'd used her charm, her innocence, to cover her tracks. She's always been good at twisting the truth, making herself seem like the victim, but I saw through it now. Her tears, her sob stories, they're just her tools to manipulate people, and I was just another pawn in her game. Honestly, the pain is still raw. I keep asking myself how I let it get this far, how I didn't see it coming, but I also know I can't undo what she's done. The house, the savings, they're gone, or at least they're in dispute now. I'm left with a broken heart, a sense of betrayal, and a hell of a lot of anger. But I also know I need to stay strong. I need to fight for what's mine and get some justice. Because if I don't, she'll just keep lying, cheating, and taking everything I worked for. The days following the court hearing were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and sleepless nights. I couldn't believe how much she'd managed to hide behind her fake tears and false apologies. Lisa kept insisting she was the victim, that I had manipulated her into signing over everything, but I had the proof now. The signed documents, the emails, the bank transfers, they all painted a different picture. She'd been planning her escape for months, and I was the last to know. I remember sitting in my living room, staring at the legal papers spread out on the table, feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. The house, the savings, $500,000 wiped out in a single night. She signed everything away to John, her boss, the very man she'd been sneaking around with. And she had the nerve to turn around and accuse me of pushing her into it. That was rich. I knew her too well now. She's always been good at lying, twisting stories, making herself look like the innocent victim. But I saw her true face now, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd do anything to get what she wanted. I started to dig deeper, trying to find out if there was anything else she'd hidden. Turns out, she'd been funneling money into secret accounts, accounts she never told me about. Hidden investments, offshore accounts, even a few small businesses she'd set up behind my back. It was like peeling an onion. Every layer revealed more deception. I felt sick. How could someone I loved do this? How could she betray me so thoroughly and still look me in the eye, pretending everything was fine? One thing I learned was that she'd been secretly working with John for months. She confided in him about our finances, about her dissatisfaction with the marriage, and he'd been egging her on. She told him she wanted out, that she was tired of pretending to be happy. And John, the ruthless bastard, saw an opportunity. He offered her a way out: money, a new life, the house, and she took it. The night she signed everything over, she even went to a lawyer she'd secretly hired, someone she kept hidden from me. She knew exactly what she was doing. I remember the moment I found out she'd transferred the house and our savings to John just a day before the divorce hearing. I was furious. It felt like she'd stolen the very foundation of our life together. I couldn't believe how cold and calculated she'd been. She knew I'd fight to keep what was ours, so she decided to cut me out completely. Signed everything away in a rush, then lied about it all. Her story about being pressured into signing, bullshit. She did it because she wanted out and she didn't care who she hurt in the process. I also started to realize that her tears, her apologies, they were just part of her game. She'd cry, say she loved me, then turn around and stab me in the back. That's who she is, a master manipulator. She's always been good at pretending to be the victim, even when she's the one causing the damage. I felt like a fool for trusting her, for believing in the marriage. But now I see her for what she really is, a selfish, calculating woman who's willing to destroy everything we built just to get what she wants. The hardest part was accepting that I might never get the house or the savings back. She'd already transferred everything, and I didn't have the resources to fight her in court for months. I was left with just the evidence and a broken heart. I kept asking myself over and over, how did it come to this? How did I miss all the signs? I thought we had a good life, a future together. Turns out, she'd been planning her escape for a long time, and I was just too blind to see it. But I wasn't going to give up. I knew I had to keep fighting, not just for the money, but for my dignity. I started looking into legal options, talking to lawyers, trying to find a way to reverse the transfers or at least get some of what was hers back. I also began to think about how I'd rebuild after this. It's a terrible feeling, knowing the woman I loved was capable of this level of deception. But deep down, I also knew I'd survive. I had to. The betrayal changed everything. I can't trust her anymore, not even a little. Every time I think about her with John, I feel this fiery mix of anger and sadness. How could she do this to us, to me? It's like my entire life was a lie. But I also know I can't let her get away with it. I need to be smart, to hold her accountable, and to protect what's left of what we once had. Even if that means starting from scratch, I refuse to let her win. The weeks that followed were the hardest I've ever gone through. I spent most of my days buried in legal documents trying to piece together how deep her deception went. Every new email, every bank statement was another knife in my gut. She'd been working behind my back, planning her escape, and I was just the last to find out. The worst part was knowing she'd lied so convincingly, crying, pleading, acting like the victim, while she was secretly signing over our house and our savings to John, as if she was wiping her hands clean of the whole mess. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, staring at the signed documents I'd finally gotten hold of. The signatures were hers, no doubt. She signed them in a panic, probably thinking she had no choice. But she did have a choice. She chose to betray everything we built. I couldn't believe how cold she'd been, how calculated her moves were. She'd been planning her exit for months, and she'd used me as a fool. It was like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time differently. I wasn't just going to yell or accuse. I wanted to understand her reasoning, if there even was one. So I called her, told her I wanted to meet. She agreed, with that fake sweet voice she always used when she was trying to manipulate me. We met at a quiet, and I saw her trying to put on her best innocent face. She kept insisting she was confused, that she didn't mean for things to get so out of hand, that she was just trying to find her happiness, that she loved me but she was stuck, and John was just a way to escape her misery. I looked her straight in the eyes and asked her why she did it. Why she signed everything over to John just a day before the divorce. Her answer, that she was desperate, that she didn't want to lose everything, that she was afraid I'd take everything from her if I found out sooner. She said she never meant to hurt me, that she was just trying to protect herself. But I knew better. I knew she was lying. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. She'd been so good at hiding it, I almost believed her stories. What really tore me apart was when she told me she felt trapped. She'd been suffocating in our marriage. She claimed I was controlling, that I didn't listen, that I didn't care about her happiness. But that was just her way of justifying her betrayal. The truth was she'd been looking for an exit since day one. And John was her ticket out. She used her charm, her tears, her fake vulnerability, everything to manipulate her way out of our marriage and into his arms. I asked her if she loved John. She hesitated, then said she didn't know, that she was confused. She just wanted to be free, that she was tired of pretending everything was perfect. I could see the lies flickering behind her eyes. She thought she was clever, but I saw through her. She'd been dishonest from the start, and now she was trying to spin it into some kind of tragic love story. The most shocking part was when she told me she'd already moved into John's place, that she'd been staying there for weeks, planning her future without me. She said she wanted a fresh start, that she was finally happy. But I knew it was all a lie. She wasn't happy. She was just escaping. Her guilt, her shame, her failed marriage. And she'd taken everything, our house, our savings, our future, and handed it over to him like it was nothing. I felt a deep ache in my chest as I listened to her. It was like watching someone I loved turn into a stranger right in front of me. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind, how I missed all the signs. But the truth was, I didn't want to see it. I wanted to believe in us. I wanted to believe she loved me. But deep down, I knew the woman sitting across from me was just a shell, a woman who'd betrayed everything we shared for her own selfish gain. I left that meeting feeling emptier than ever. I knew I had to do something more. I couldn't let her just walk away with everything. I started to gather every piece of evidence I could, screenshots, emails, legal documents, and I contacted a lawyer to see what my options were. I wasn't just fighting for the house or the savings anymore. I was fighting to restore some sense of justice. Because if I didn't, I knew she'd keep lying, keep manipulating, and keep taking what's mine. This whole thing has made me realize how fragile trust is, how easy it is to believe someone you love, and how devastating it can be when that trust is shattered. I still wonder how she could do this, to me, to our life together. But I also know I can't change what happened. I can only control what I do next. And that's what I plan to do, fight for what's rightfully mine, and try to find some way to move on from this nightmare. The final stretch has been a brutal lesson in betrayal and survival. After all the chaos, the court hearings, the evidence gathering, the endless legal battles, I finally started to see a glimmer of hope. Lisa's lies had unraveled completely, and the truth was out in the open. She had signed away our house and savings to John just before the divorce, trying to cut me out entirely. She thought she could get away with it, that her charm and tears would be enough to fool everyone. But I'd seen through her from the start. I managed to get a judge to review the case, and after months of legal fight, I was able to reverse some of the transfers. Not everything, but enough to give me a fighting chance. I got back partial control of the house, and I'm now working with a lawyer to pursue further action against her for fraud and breach of trust. I want her held accountable for the way she manipulated the entire situation, for taking everything we built and throwing it away for her own selfish reasons. Looking back, I realize how much I was by her charm. She's always been good at pretending to be the victim, convincing everyone she's innocent. But I see her now for what she really is, a selfish, manipulative woman who's willing to destroy everything and everyone in her path if it means getting what she wants. The worst part, I still feel a sting of heartbreak, knowing I loved her, trusted her, and she turned out to be someone I didn't even recognize. I've learned a lot from this experience. Trust is fragile, and it can be broken in an instant. Never ignore the small signs because they often point to something much darker. Always keep your eyes open, especially when your gut tells you something isn't right. And most importantly, don't let anyone, no matter how charming or loving they seem, take you for granted or manipulate your life for their own gain. Now, I'm slowly rebuilding. I've started therapy to deal with the emotional fallout, and I've begun focusing on my own happiness again. It's not easy, but I know I'll come out of this stronger. The betrayal has left scars, but they're also lessons. I'll never let someone take advantage of my trust again. I've learned to value myself more, to stand firm in my boundaries, and to never ignore the red flags. As for Lisa, I hope she finds whatever it is she's truly looking for, though I doubt she'll find peace in betrayal. I don't harbor hatred anymore. I just feel a profound sadness for how everything turned out. She threw away a marriage, a future, and our shared dreams for a moment of selfish pleasure. And in the end, she lost everything. her marriage, her integrity, her self-respect. For anyone out there reading this, my biggest advice is this: pay attention. Be honest with yourself about the signs, no matter how uncomfortable they are. Trust is earned, not given blindly. And if you find yourself betrayed, don't beat yourself up. Pick up the pieces, learn from it, and keep moving forward. Because life is too short to dwell on those who betray you. Your focus should be on healing, growth, and finding someone who truly deserves your trust.